Imagine your world had no laws, no courts, nothing to protect you but your own two hands. Now imagine someone wrongs you. Do you take revenge or demand justice? That question changed history forever. Long before laws existed, humans lived in small, wandering bands, moving from place to place. There was no police, no courts, and conflict was inevitable. People sharing food, shelter, and land every day were bound to disagree over a stolen tool, or who ate first. Left unresolved, small disputes could spiral fast. One argument between two people could pull entire families into the fight, threatening the whole community. So early humans faced a brutal question: who decides who's right? Without an answer, the strongest fist usually won, and that was never justice. Without rules to hold them back, the answer was often simple and savage. If someone wronged you, you took matters into your own hands. An eye for an eye, a life for a life. Revenge became the only law early humans knew, passed down through families like an unpaid debt. But revenge never truly ends anything. Every act of retaliation creates a new victim who feels justified striking back, and the cycle just keeps spinning. Whole communities could be consumed by this cycle, until villages that once thrived were left broken, exhausted, and afraid of their own neighbors. Humanity needed something new, a way to settle disputes that didn't depend on who was strongest, but on what everyone could trust as fair. The very first solution came from the elders, the oldest, most experienced, and most respected members of the tribe, whose long memory of past disputes made their judgment worth trusting. When two people came into conflict, they would walk together to the elder, and each side would speak in turn, laying out exactly what had happened from their own point of view. The elder's decision was accepted by everyone, not necessarily because it was perfect, but because it stopped the violence and let the whole community move forward together again. This was humanity's very first form of justice spoken aloud, informal and imperfect, but powerful enough to hold small communities together for thousands and thousands of years. But then, everything about human life began to change. People learned to plant seeds, tend crops, and stay in one place, instead of constantly moving in search of food. Farming meant something the old wandering bands never had: permanent homes, stored grain that could feed a family through winter, and for the very first time, private land that belonged to just one person. And with private property came a whole new scale of conflict. Now people weren't just fighting over food or tools, they were fighting over land, borders, and who truly owned what. Small villages slowly grew into busy towns, and those towns eventually grew into something the world had never truly seen before: sprawling, crowded cities full of complete strangers. And in a crowded city full of strangers, one elder sitting by a single fire was simply no longer enough to keep the peace. In a city, people no longer knew their neighbor's entire life story the way they once had in a small village of 30 or 40 familiar faces. Spoken tradition and one man's memory simply couldn't keep up anymore. Not when there were thousands of new disputes happening across the city every single week. A new and far bigger question emerged from the chaos. How do you make justice fair, consistent, and exactly the same for absolutely every single person in the city? Around 2100 BCE, in the Sumerian city of Ur, one king finally found an answer that would echo through the rest of human history. His name was Ur-Nammu, and instead of trusting memory alone, he ordered his laws carved permanently into stone, where every citizen could see them for themselves. This became humanity's oldest known written code of law, carved into solid stone instead of trusted to a single fading human memory. For the very first time in human history, the punishment for a crime was written down clearly, and it was meant to apply exactly the same way to everyone. But it was another king centuries later who would carve his name permanently into legal history and change the ancient world forever. In Babylon, around 1754 BCE, King Hammurabi carved 282 individual laws into a single towering stone monument for his entire kingdom to obey. His code covered almost every part of daily life: theft, marriage, unpaid debts, farming accidents, and even what we would now call medical malpractice. Its single most famous rule became legendary across the ancient world: an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, justice made visible and equal. But contrary to popular belief, Hammurabi's code wasn't only about harsh punishment. Much of it was actually designed to protect ordinary people from being cheated or exploited. So the real question becomes, did carving these laws into solid stone actually succeed in stopping the endless cycles of violence and revenge? For the very first time in human history, a wronged person didn't need to reach for a weapon. They needed a witness, a written law, and a fair hearing. Disputes slowly moved away from the battlefield and into the courtroom, a radical, world-changing shift in how humans chose to treat one another. Hammurabi's code became a powerful model, studied, copied, and adapted by kingdom after kingdom across the ancient Near East for centuries to come. The core idea itself began to spread far beyond Babylon, that laws should be public, consistent, and apply equally to every single citizen, rich or poor. That one simple idea became the seed for every legal system that would ever follow it, growing quietly across thousands of years of human civilization. From ancient Babylon, the idea traveled forward through Roman law, medieval courts, and eventually into the modern legal systems we live under today. 4,000 years, countless kingdoms, one single idea that refused to disappear, that everyone deserves to be heard before they are judged. So, if you had been wronged 4,000 years ago, standing right there in that forest clearing, what would you truly have done? Would you have raised a weapon in anger, or raised your voice instead calmly in front of a judge who was willing to listen? Every trial happening today, every courtroom, every written law on the books, began with that exact same question, asked by people just trying to survive together. Justice was never born from mercy alone. It was born from necessity, from ordinary people refusing to let a cycle of revenge destroy everything they had built. And it all started right here, with people just like you and me, standing in a forest clearing, refusing to let a single wrong go unanswered.